Good afternoon and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. Unexpanded G7 has long been a demand of the emerging world. While the member nations agree in principle that this expansion, they are divided over who should get a seat at the G7 table. Donald Trump has made his intentions clear. According to him, the current G7 lineup is outdated. Trump wants to invite Russia, South Korea, India and Australia to the G7 summit this year. As the G7 president for 2020, the guest list is entirely Trump's prerogative, but changing the membership structure is trickier. The G7 can be expanded only if all members unanimously ratify such a proposal. The United Kingdom, the European Union and Canada have already ruled out Russia's readmission. Effectively, 5 out of 7 member nations have opposed Trump's proposal. While non-member nations have regularly attended G7 summits as guests, Vladimir Putin is an exception. Russia was expelled 6 years ago after its annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. Now, Putin's presence at the summit this year will unsettle American allies who argue that Russia has not changed its ways since 2014. For its part, Russia has welcomed Trump's move to expand the G7, but Moscow has certain demands of its own. It wants China to be a part of this expanded group. Russia's foreign ministry spokesperson said that it is not possible to implement serious global undertakings without China's participation. Needless to say, this is unlikely to go down well with Trump. U.S.-China relations are at an all-time low. Both sides are sparring over China's handling of the pandemic and the new security laws in Hong Kong. Now, Dan Ashby, our WION correspondent, is joining us live from Moscow for more on this. Good afternoon to you, Dan. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump wants to include Russia in the G7, but the European Union has... They agree in principle to expand the G7, but they are definitely divided on including Russia.
Yes, exactly as you say. Already Britain and Canada coming out and saying they would absolutely refuse to allow Russia back in. Of course, Russia's relations with many of the G7 members have just got worse since 2014, as you say. Take the Salisbury poisonings in the UK, the so-called Skripal affair. Britain accuses Russia of orchestrating a chemical weapons attack on British streets and says that Moscow was behind it. That is something Russia furiously denies, but Russia is angry about those accusations, and so there does seem to be little way that Russia can rejoin the G7. As when it comes to Trump's specific announcement that he wants these countries to come to the upcoming summit, Russia had a cool response saying they'd wait for more information, with some politicians suggesting that some of the G7 countries simply hated Russia, so unsure whether Russia should join anyway. But look, make no mistake, I think if President Putin had a real offer to go back to the G7 table, he would be over the moon, because it would put Russia back square in the world stage and give Russia a bigger role to get its message across.
Absolutely. And Russia is also pushing for China's inclusion, now stating that, and I quote, hardly possible to implement serious global initiatives without China. Now, with US-China relations already strained, Trump can't be too happy about this suggestion.
Yes, exactly. Since all those sanctions came in after 2014 against Russia, Russia has pivoted east, if you like. It's looked towards China to forge new relationships, new economic ties, signing multi-million-dollar oil pipelines and trying to really move its economy eastwards. It hasn't happened as quickly as it would like, but the two are forging closer together politically. It's no surprise that Russia would want China at the table. It would give them more clout because they see eye to eye on many policies. But as you say, that's hardly likely to happen at the moment, with President Trump's rhetoric against China just getting angrier and angrier. So at the moment, this seems to be a bit of politics. It's possible, of course, that Russia and India, Australia, South Korea could be invited as guests, which even in itself, even if they didn't become full members, particularly in Russia's case, that would be seen as hugely controversial, a real difficult moment for many world leaders to have President Putin there at the very meeting that's supposed to be seen as the steering group for the West, if you like.
Dan, thank you very much for that update. That is Dan Ashby, our WION correspondent, coming to us live from Moscow for the latest on Trump's ideas on the G7 there.